And when our eyes met, a strange current surged through me, an unfamiliar electricity that left me breathless. It's just a fleeting moment, I tried to convince myself, but the connection between us felt far stronger than it should. What is happening? I wondered, struggling to suppress the emotions swirling within me, emotions I couldn't quite name or explain. That night, as we settled into the cozy confines of the cabin, an abrupt gust of wind howled outside. Rain lashed against the windows with an almost frantic rhythm, the storm raging beyond our small refuge. Inside, wrapped in towels and surrounded by the cabin's warmth, we were safe, insulated from the chaos outside. The contrast was striking, the storm's wild fury battering the world beyond, and the intimate stillness within the cabin, where every glance and unspoken word seemed to echo louder than the thunder. Hello, I'm Alara, and I want to share a story about an unforgettable vacation I had with my father, Cashin. I'm 24 years old, and after everything my family has been through, especially losing my mother, it felt like the right time for us to reconnect. Our relationship had changed profoundly since my mom's passing, and we both needed a chance to heal in ways we hadn't allowed ourselves before. This trip seemed like the perfect opportunity to rebuild what we had lost. So, we decided to spend a week at a stunning beachfront resort. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was determined to embrace this chance to strengthen our bond and create new memories that would last a lifetime. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so I can continue sharing more fascinating real-life stories like this one. And don't miss a moment, watch the video till the very end and give it a like, as this story promises to be truly unforgettable. Show your support by tapping the like button, it really helps and means so much. My father and I chose Clearwater, Florida, for my summer escape, a place that had lived in my childhood dreams, scribbled down in a wish to Santa years ago. The moment we arrived, it was like stepping into a postcard. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a molten gold hue over everything, as if the world itself had been dipped in honey. The instant my feet touched the velvety soft sand, a wave of liberation crashed over me. The weight of responsibilities, worries, and life's chaos seemed to dissolve into the salty breeze. Before us stretched the endless shoreline, its beauty almost surreal. The waves glittered like liquid diamonds under the sun, their melody tugging at something deep inside me. A surge of exhilaration pulsed through my veins, the kind that whispers, "This moment is special. This is a memory you'll carry forever." Without thinking, I dashed toward the water, my bare feet sinking into the cool sand that clung to my skin like a lover's touch. Each step felt like shedding layers of stress, replacing them with a raw, vibrant energy. Behind me, my father's laughter rang out, a sound so genuine it made my chest tighten. He followed me, splashing playfully, his face lit with an unrestrained joy I hadn't seen in years. It reminded me of when I was a little girl and life was simpler, back before the losses and the changes. In that fleeting moment, it was as if time folded, and we were just two souls rediscovering each other, untethered by the past. I turned to look at him, and my breath caught. The sun kissed his face, highlighting the strong lines of his jaw and the warmth in his eyes. Despite the years, he radiated vitality, his smile alone could brighten the stormiest day. My heart skipped as a stray thought crossed my mind, "He's stunning." I shook my head quickly, as if to banish the idea, but the image lingered. His broad shoulders, the way he carried himself, the effortless charm in his laughter, it all painted a picture of a man who had aged like fine wine. The light danced in his eyes, filled with a contentment that made my pulse quicken. My emotions swirled, complicated and unspoken. But I forced myself to look away, to focus on the waves instead. After all, he was my father. Still, as I stood there with the breeze teasing my hair and the sun warming my skin, I couldn't ignore the spark of something undeniable. Something I wasn't sure I wanted to name. Our first night at the resort, we joined the beachfront bonfire organized for the guests. The fire crackled and hissed, sending sparks spiraling into the night sky like tiny shooting stars. Around us, laughter and lively conversations filled the air, blending harmoniously with the soothing rhythm of the waves crashing nearby. The warm night carried the salty tang of the ocean, mingling with the smoky scent of burning wood, creating a magical, almost surreal atmosphere. We sat on the soft sand, surrounded by the easy camaraderie of strangers who felt like friends. It was as though we were part of something far greater than ourselves. Suddenly, I noticed a few guys glancing our way, their gazes lingering just a moment too long. A strange mix of pride and embarrassment swept over me, leaving me unsure how to react. "Dad, don't embarrass me, okay?" I joked, nudging his arm playfully. My cheeks grew warm, and I was sure they were flushed, but deep down, I couldn't deny the quiet thrill of being noticed. Dad chuckled, draping his arm over my shoulders and pulling me close. "I'm not trying to embarrass you, kiddo," he said, his voice a gentle reassurance, like a soothing balm for my awkwardness. "I'm just enjoying this evening with my daughter." In that moment, the warmth I felt wasn't just from the fire. There was something deeper, something that made my heart race unexpectedly. Was it merely the heat of the flames, or was there something else, something unspoken yet powerful, simmering between us? It was a feeling I couldn't name, but I couldn't ignore its magnetic pull either. The next day, we rented bikes and decided to ride along the beach. It was the perfect day for it, clear blue skies, a gentle breeze, and the distant sound of waves crashing. The sun was high in the sky, and I could feel its warmth on my skin as we pedaled side by side. I loved being outdoors with Dad. It made me feel connected to him in a way that was hard to put into words. As we rode, the wind blew through my hair, but I couldn't help but notice Dad's gaze on me every time I glanced back at him. At first, I thought nothing of it, just the usual attention of a concerned father, but as the minutes passed, I began to wonder if there was something more in his eyes. I tried to focus on the ride, but there was an undeniable tension in the air, something unspoken that hung between us. Just as I was trying to shake off the feeling, I accidentally knocked over a bit of water from my bike. It wasn't anything serious, just a slight stumble, but it took me by surprise. I laughed it off and brushed the sand off my hands, but when I looked up, I saw Dad running toward me, his face full of worry. I could see the concern in his eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice rough with genuine worry. He helped me up, his hands strong yet gentle, and when our eyes locked, something shifted. A strange current ran through me, and I told myself it was nothing, just a little fall, nothing more. But as I stood there, something in the way our connection felt made me wonder if there was more to this moment than just concern. That night, after settling into our cabin, a sudden gust of wind swept through, and the storm raged outside, the rain pouring down against the windows. We were safe inside, wrapped in towels, the warmth of the cabin contrasting with the wild weather outside. We laughed and shared hot cocoa, and for the first time in a long while, I felt genuinely at peace. There was something comforting about being there with him, a moment of safety and shared quiet. But as we sat there, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. When I smiled at him, a fleeting thought crossed my mind: why did I feel this way about my dad? Was it just because we'd spent so much time together? It seemed ridiculous, but I couldn't ignore it. The next morning, the sky was clear again, and the storm had passed. We decided to take a walk along the beach. The soft sand under our feet, the gentle waves lapping against the shore, and the calls of distant seagulls added to the serene atmosphere. "Dad, can I tell you something?" I asked, feeling a bit nervous but determined to express my feelings. "I feel like we're closer than ever. You're not just my dad, you're my best friend." His face softened, and I could see the warmth in his eyes. "I feel the same way, Ava," he replied, but his voice held a depth that made my heart skip a beat, as if his words carried more weight than I had expected. Later that day, we decided to explore some local shops. As we wandered through a colorful market, my attention was caught by a beautiful seashell necklace. Without thinking, I hurriedly tried it on. "What do you think, Dad?" I asked, turning to look at him in the mirror. When I turned back to face him, I saw him staring at me. His expression was a mix of admiration and something else, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. It was the kind of look that made my heart race but also left me feeling uneasy. My cheeks flushed, and I quickly looked away, caught in a strange blend of excitement and confusion. We had a wonderful time shopping together. That evening, the last night of our trip, we held a private little celebration filled with laughter and joy. During dinner, the conversation remained light and ordinary, but I could sense that both of us were thinking about the same thing, unspoken words and intimate moments that left us questioning what to do next. I knew my dad was struggling with it too. He was quieter than usual, as if trying to figure out the right way to handle everything. After dinner, we decided to take a walk. It wasn't a long one, just around the neighborhood, but it felt meaningful. The cool, fresh air and the quiet streets added to the sense of closeness between us. Walking side by side, I couldn't help but feel like we were balancing on a tightrope, each step bringing us closer to something we weren't sure how to navigate. The conversation flowed easily, as it always did, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much had changed. It wasn't just about the time we spent together, it was that we had both become different. I was no longer just his daughter, and he was no longer simply my dad. There was something more, something deeper, growing between us that went beyond the roles we had always known. Without thinking, I reached out and took his hand. It was an unconscious act, entirely unplanned. The moment my fingers brushed against his skin, a surge of energy coursed through me, electrifying every nerve. My heart pounded wildly in my chest, so fast it felt as if it might break free, and I realized I was holding my breath. The intensity of the sensation was overwhelming, catching me completely off guard. I didn't know what to do next. He glanced at our joined hands, his eyes shimmering with something I couldn't quite define. Then, he looked up, his gaze locking onto mine, penetrating as if it could lay bare every hidden thought in my mind. I couldn't look away. My thoughts were a tangled mess, yet my body seemed to act of its own accord, drawn to him by an inexplicable force. I didn't understand why I couldn't let go or why I didn't want to. "Elara," he murmured my name, his voice low, carrying a depth of emotion that made my chest tighten. His breath was slower, heavier, as though he was trying to steady himself. There was something in his tone, something unspoken, that hinted at a shift neither of us had anticipated. But before he could say more, a group of children dashed past, their laughter ringing out and shattering the fragile silence between us. I flinched, startled, and quickly withdrew my hand. He stepped back just as fast, as though we'd both been jolted awake from a fleeting, surreal dream. For a moment, we stood there, frozen, neither of us knowing what to say. His expression flickered with confusion, and I could feel my own heartbeat refusing to return to normal. We resumed walking in silence, but it wasn't the comfortable kind. It was heavy, laden with the weight of what had just happened. The air between us seemed charged with unsaid words, unspoken truths lingering on the edge of confession. My mind replayed the moment over and over, questioning if I'd imagined it all or if he had felt the same pull I did. In the days that followed, everything between us subtly shifted. His glances lingered a little too long, his touch, when it happened, seemed to carry an unfamiliar warmth that left an imprint on my skin. There was something different in the way he spoke to me, hesitant yet intent, as though navigating uncharted territory. I noticed it all, and I knew he did too. We were balancing on a fragile line, unsure of when it might give way beneath us. Every fleeting moment spent near him made my heart race, and I began to crave those interactions more than I cared to admit. Yet, with every passing day, a growing unease crept into my thoughts. What were we doing? Could we continue like this without crossing boundaries we shouldn't? Or were we already heading towards something neither of us was prepared to face? These questions haunted me, refusing to leave. And every time he looked at me with that gaze, a mixture of longing and restraint, it pulled me closer, yet filled me with apprehension. We were standing at the edge of something monumental, and I wasn't sure whether I had the courage to step forward or if it was already too late to turn back. A surge of jealousy burned through me, intense and consuming, as I realized others might notice something different if they truly paid attention to how we interacted. The thought clawed at my chest, twisting and tightening like a vice. "Do you think people notice us?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound calm. The vulnerability in my question hung in the air between us, exposing a part of me I wasn't ready to reveal. He stopped, his expression shifting from surprise to deep contemplation. His gaze darkened, his jaw tightening slightly as if weighing the gravity of my words. "They might," he admitted after a pause, his tone steady but laced with an unspoken warning. "But what matters is the connection we have, not what anyone else thinks." Still, he hesitated, his eyes locking onto mine with a quiet intensity. "We have to be careful, Elara. These feelings, whatever they are, they're powerful. But we can't let them show too much, not in public." His words were a double-edged sword, a comfort that acknowledged our bond and a cautionary reminder of its precariousness. The setting sun bathed the festival in a golden glow, the kind of light that made the ordinary feel almost sacred. The air buzzed with warmth and life, but all I could focus on was him, on us. A sudden urge gripped me, a need to capture this fleeting moment before it slipped away. "Let's take a selfie," I suggested, forcing a casual smile as I pulled out my phone. He nodded, stepping closer until the space between us was almost non-existent. We posed, the proximity electric, and I snapped the photo. When I looked at the image, my breath caught in my throat. Our eyes, his and mine, told a story no words could ever convey. There was something raw and undeniable in the way we looked at each other, a connection so profound it seemed to leap off the screen. My chest tightened as I realized the depth of what we shared, a truth we both felt but neither dared to fully acknowledge. This was a moment I knew I would carry with me forever, no matter what the future held. The ride home was steeped in silence, yet it was anything but empty. The weight of what had transpired between us hung heavily, thickening the air like a storm waiting to break. My heart pounded in my chest, racing with emotions I couldn't name, while my mind churned with thoughts I couldn't quiet. We were walking a razor-thin line, balancing precariously on the edge of something both breathtakingly beautiful and dangerously unknown. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts spiraling into uncharted territories. The possibilities ahead loomed large, both exhilarating and terrifying. What were we doing? Could we continue down this path without losing ourselves completely? Or had we already crossed a line we couldn't return from? The questions swirled like a relentless storm, refusing to let me rest. But deep down, in the quietest corners of my heart, I knew the truth. I didn't want to stop. Whatever this was, this powerful, uncontrollable force between us, it was too real, too consuming to ignore. I wasn't sure where it would lead, whether it would be salvation or destruction. All I knew was that I couldn't walk away, and maybe I didn't want to. We are standing at the edge of a boundary, a point of no return. Once we cross it, there will be no turning back to what was before. It feels like a monumental moment, a decision that I know will change everything. The weight of this moment presses on me, as if everything is hanging in the balance, and once I step forward, there's no going back. The questions and uncertainties about the future crowd my mind, but there's also something stronger than all of that, a sense, undeniable and clear, that this is the moment we must move forward. And one thing I know for sure, something that cannot be denied, is that this journey has only just begun. All that has come before, all those moments, were merely stepping stones leading to a long and challenging path ahead. I can feel it, that we are standing at the beginning of something, where there is no map, no paved road. Everything is uncertain, unpredictable, but it's this very uncertainty that makes it so incredibly captivating. Even though I don't know where this road will take us, whether it will lead me to a place of beauty and hope or into an endless abyss, I am ready to embrace whatever comes. The excitement, mixed with a touch of fear, fills me, but instead of holding me back, it only strengthens my resolve. All the worries, the doubts, cannot stop the determination that burns within me. We will keep moving forward, facing whatever challenges this path brings, because I believe that each step, no matter how small, will lead us to something profound, and I am ready to face whatever the unknown has in store.